72 hours ago, I switched to Peterbot's binds with the goal of becoming good at keyboard and mouse, but this was harder than I ever imagined. I suggest watching my 24-hour progression first, but as a quick recap of day 1, I started from scratch. Peterbot has a very unique way of clicking his movement keys where he actually moves all of his fingers to the right, which allows his index finger to be completely free for fast editing and building. And this is really smart, but it's incredibly hard to adjust to. So for my first hour, I learned how to do the most basic 90s, which with the new movement was still so hard to learn. Then I used hours 2 and 3 to slowly learn how to double edit, and once I got that consistently, I moved on to learn triple edit. I finished my beginner session by learning basic side jumps, and then I proceeded to spend 4 straight hours grinding a piece control map. This is where my skill saw the biggest improvement on day 1, because towards the start of the session, I looked like this, getting completely stuck with my movement keys while also forgetting which keys I needed to edit and build. But after hundreds of repetitions in tons of unique drills, I started to build my muscle memory and slowly but surely became more and more consistent. I ended day 1 by trying to play an actual game of solo reload and surprised even myself when I hit this pretty advanced piece control play without messing up a single thing. Towards the end of the game, I was getting a little nervous and forgetting which keys to press, but ultimately I ended up winning the game, and that now brings us to day 2 of learning Peterbot's bonds. I saw some insane improvement from my first day, but I'm still far from becoming a good keyboard and mouse player, so I started day 2 by just free building to warm up and to see how much muscle memory I developed yesterday. It took a few minutes to remember the feel of everything, but pretty quickly I started hitting triple edits again, I started doing side jumps again, I started throwing in the moves into combos, and I even learned the 90s with the 4 placed as well. Just like every other move I've learned so far, I tried a few of these in regular speed and realized I couldn't process all the keys I needed to press fast enough. I would just kind of jam in all the keys together. So I set the map into slow motion, gave my brain time to understand the pattern and timing. It took literally 3 minutes of doing this until I set the map back into regular speed and could do perfect 90s. So that's one more move learned, and after a 30-minute free build session, I was feeling good. I really recommend everyone to try a 30-minute free build session in this map at least once a day. The progress can be crazy, which you'll see later in this series. In now officially 9 hours of playing Fortnite on Peterbot's binds, I'm back grinding piece control drills, but this time with a different focus. On day 1, I got decent at using Peterbot's binds and movement, but the one thing I never tried is his mouse grip. See, the way you probably hold a mouse is like this, with your thumb on the side and one finger on each mouse button. But to be faster on keyboard and mouse, players like Peterbot actually place 3 fingers on top so he can dedicate his middle finger to only control the scroll wheel. This makes box fighting with the mouse way more overpowered, and then to be even faster, Peterbot uses a claw grip where only his palm and fingertips are touching the mouse. This gives him more precise control of his aim and allows his fingers to click faster, but just like his movement, this felt so weird to me. When you've been using a mouse one way your entire life, it feels crazy to switch to the grip, but these little tweaks are what allows Peterbot to be so fast. So if I ever want to be even half as good as him, I need to learn this too. And basically instantly, I could tell that this was better. Even though it felt awkward, I instantly had way more accurate aim and could feel just how much faster it was. The biggest adjustment for me was actually remembering to use only my middle finger for scroll wheel, because it's not that hard to actually do, but I've always used my index finger for scroll wheel, so if I'm not thinking about it, my muscle memory just goes back to the old way, which you can see I keep accidentally doing. So over and over, I had to keep reminding myself to fix my grip, and after around an hour of practicing this with reset drills, I started to get the hang of it, but then I messed up my claw grip. Naturally, my fingers kept sliding down to more of a palm grip, so I decided for now I'd just focus on the finger placement. A big lesson I've learned from switching to Peterbot's bind so far is to just focus on one thing at a time. If I try to learn the movement keys, the mouse finger placement, the mouse grip, and all of the other new binds at the same time, it's gonna be way too confusing and super frustrating. Honestly, if I tried to do that, I probably would have quit already. But by spending day 1 focusing on the binds, and now day 2 focusing on the mouse finger placement, it gives me just one thing to focus on and master, and in the end, it'll all come together like you can start to see see right now. After grinding piece control, I was feeling confident, so I wanted to see what my free builds looked like, and I was pleasantly surprised. Using my new middle finger scroll wheel along with everything else I've been practicing, I put together a fairly advanced free build combo, and now heading into hour 10 on Peterbot's binds, I was fiending for some real fights. I would say the free building and piece control practice is probably the most important while learning new binds or switching to keyboard and mouse, but after spending so many hours grinding it, it does get boring, so you have to find ways to have fun while still practicing, which for me was by playing the pit. The progress won't be as fast compared to grinding piece control drills, but if you get bored and get off, then you'll have no progress at all. So finding a fun mode you enjoy while still learning is key, and even with the pit, I get unlimited non-stop fighting against real players, which is still really valuable for learning these binds. In here, I get to practice my aim along with my item slot binds, and even editing under the pressure of a fight, which I definitely need more practice in. But now, moving on to 1v1 piece control is really where some great progress can be made. This is a way more realistic way to practice fighting, and luckily I was getting matched with some pretty bad players, which made for great practice. And from all my practice on my mouse finger placement earlier, I was starting to see it pay off in these close range fights and really understand why Peterbot uses it. It's so overpowered. Now my next opponent was actually pretty good, but right here is basically the biggest advantage keyboard and mouse has, and is why it's so overpowered. I just switched to Peterbot's binds 2 days ago. I've spent a total of 11 hours on these binds so far, and I'm already pretty competitive in close range box fights. A lot of really good controller players and even pros have switched to keyboard and mouse because of this. The scroll wheel reset is just so fast, especially when you use this Peterbot method. The edits are faster and easier to control, and even the aim is easier with how fast you can flick. Now the aim gets harder with longer range aim, but for close box fights like this, keyboard and mouse is just too good, and is one of the big reasons I want to become a good keyboard and mouse player. But I still have a lot more work to do, especially to become even close to as good as Peterbot. So next, I wanted to see how good I was in a real game. I won my first reload game against pretty mid players, and now I headed into Tilted where I was frying. I've always heard that aiming with the mouse is harder than aiming with a controller, but honestly, it's always felt pretty natural to me, and especially with Peterbot's aim sense, it's really easy to control. So making it all the way down to endgame, I grapple over and hit this shot while falling to make it a 1v1, and then my aim pretty much did the rest. I hit a couple snipes while this guy tried to rotate in, and then I pushed him and hit the shotgun shot for now my second win on Peterbot's binds already. But don't let this fool you, because I'm still not even close to being good. So far, I've really only fought mid players, which will be exposed soon, but after a short break, I was back to free building. My goal over the course of this 3-day progression is to play as much as possible to try to get as good as possible on Peterbot's binds. But I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard. I'm still way better on controllers, so it's frustrating to be bad and keep messing up, but I think what really got me through all of this is simply not having my headset on and just watching videos. My attention span might just be cooked, but right here I spent about 30 minutes just trying to learn sprint side jumps, and the whole time I was watching YouTube, and it makes the grind a little more entertaining. Like, you could be doing this same thing right now. While watching this video, you could also be free building and getting better. So now headed into hour 12 since I switched to Peterbot's binds, I was a little more free-flowing in my gameplay. I was putting together some solid plays, especially in close-range fights, with some clutch edits, some good shots, and even some good piece control combos. Every 1v1 piece control opponent was getting better and better, and I even made one guy rage quit who I thought was actually pretty good, so I was proud of that. To end day 2 on Peterbot's binds, I just jumped around from drill to drill, sometimes practicing my piece control, sometimes practicing my aim. I free built for a little bit. I played a few sessions of 1v1 realistics, which was actually super helpful, especially because it made me realize that I spent basically all my time learning close range box fights. And while I have been free building a lot, I haven't actually been in many build fights yet. So for the first time, I tried some PGs. And I'm not gonna lie, these exposed me a little bit. As soon as I started PGing, I realized my build fighting isn't good at all. And while I can do some of the simple stuff like 90s and even hit some shots, most of my moves are super basic. I'm not very good at placing cones above players' heads or high ground retakes or even boxing players. So I spent about an hour straight just grinding 1v1s and the progress was starting to show up, making some better edit plays towards the end. But I realized I'm still far from where I want to be, especially in PG. So I ended day 2, which totaled another 6 hours and 20 minutes of practice, bringing the total to just under 15 hours of playing on Peterbot's Binds. And now heading into day 3, I had one specific goal in mind: to play real games. Of course, to prepare for those real games, I needed a good warm-up, so I spent the first 30 minutes of my day free building and further enforcing that muscle memory, which honestly, looking at what I'm doing here compared to what I was doing just 3 days ago is absolutely insane. I can't believe the progress I've made through just 2 full days of playing, and after another 30-minute piece control drill session, I was feeling good. See, I've spent so many hours grinding drills and free builds in the past 2 days that today for day 3, I just want to have fun in some real games while also using this as a test to see how good I've really got. Creative only shows you so much, because when you queue into a real game, everything changes. And actually, my first real game of day 3 was perfect. For some reason, my lobby was still filled with bad players even after winning my last 2 games, but I was able to just use this lobby as target practice and absolutely fry. I haven't really talked about it, but my aim has definitely seen some solid improvement over these past few days as well, and even taking a bloom battle with the final player here, I was winning. I ended up holding him out of zone and won my now 3rd solos game in a row on Peterbot's Binds, this time with a 20 bomb. But that's when skill-based matchmaking kicked in and I started getting harder lobbies, which actually I wanted. Fighting just straight mid players can be fun, but a big factor to improving is to fight players a little bit better than you. And even though I have been improving at a pretty steady rate, there are still a ton of players way better than me, which I learned in this game after absolutely panicking in a late game rotate. This is the type of high pressure gameplay that's not possible to replicate in creative, so heading into real lobbies is the best way to test yourself and improve in those clutch situations. And the same thing happened the next game, where I had a few good elims and then endgame came and I got pressured and folded. Game after game, I was getting absolutely humbled, but this is exactly what I wanted to happen. This is one of the best ways to improve. I'd spend the majority of early and mid game fighting and doing pretty well for myself. Like here, I was in a zone fight with my last mammoth shot and I clutched it up to win the fight. And then about a minute later, this guy was building up to me, so I dropped on him to hit my shot. Then I hit a couple of good edits to pressure his box and I hit another headshot to take him out. Then reboots ended and I got grappled on and deleted before I was even able to react. Those are the types of plays that are going to take more time to learn to react to, but I played a few more games doing basically the same thing over and over. The good part about this though is I'm getting a ton of fighting practice, which is super important, and that leads us to the final game of day 3. I haven't won a match in over 2 hours after getting to endgame basically every time, so I landed Fort Crumpet and got my first elim dueling with the suppressed pistol. As I was farming, this guy from so far away was spraying at me, so I had a quick mammoth shot to discourage him and then actually missed a way easier mammoth shot from close range, but I followed it up with my AR and a bounce pad play for my second elim. For my third elim, I hit a nasty mammoth headshot on a guy that just got rebooted out of the sky. I picked off another bot with my AR, and then I got into my first little build fight against this guy bush camping, who actually wasn't that bad, but I was able to make an edit play to catch him off guard. And I've actually noticed that especially in these first 3 days on Peterbot's Binds, my gameplay is not even close to his style. Even though I'm using all of Peterbot's Binds and even his sensitivity, Peterbot runs around the map and piece controls everyone and everything, while I've been playing a lot slower and sort of making the smart, simple plays like a single floor edit and then relying on my aim. Eventually, I want to be on that level where I'm just piece controlling everything like Peterbot does, but like I mentioned earlier, we need to learn one thing at a time, and I'm planning on keeping this series going for at least a month, maybe longer, where I learn Peterbot's Binds. But as the zone pushed in, I hit a clutch mammoth shot on him and started pushing. I accidentally clicked my AR slot instead of my shotgun slot, which could have easily cost me, but luckily I got away with it, and now reboots are ending with 10 players up. I hit this mammoth shot for my 8th elim of the game, and then this one for my 9th. For my 10th elim, I actually had a really hard time tracking this guy, but I ended up securing the elim, and tons of players were getting stuck in zone on a max pull. So just like that, it's officially a 1v1. I used my last grapple to get closer to zone, then build up to take high ground, but this guy also is a grappler and ends up missing a mammoth shot on me, but tagging me after he landed. He grappled up to height again, and I nearly choked, misclicking my edit key, and I hit the final clutch shotgun shot to take the dub in an actually decent lobby. And that's where day 3 ends after officially 18 hours spent grinding Peterbot's binds. So subscribe, because next will be my week-long progression. Now click here to watch the first 24-hour progression on Peterbot's binds, or click here to watch me speedrun to Unreal on controller. Thanks for watching.